Indiana Jones made being a professor cool. I'm not sure I can pull that off. I've been to foreign lands, not for treasure, but to help people in the Peace Corps. I came home, not to teach archaeology, but to study how to make economies work for people. Indy's known for his fear of snakes. My fear? A Congress that puts special interests first. In Washington, I'll fight for good jobs and college affordability. I'm Paul Clements, and I approve this message. And I'm also afraid of snakes.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to We the People. That was an awesome campaign ad by Paul Clements, who's obviously afraid of snakes, but really knows how to put together a nice ad. And we have him here tonight. We're going to talk about his third run for Michigan's 6th district, and this is really cool. Paul, thank you for joining us today on We the People.
Thank you, John. My pleasure.
So that's okay. I'm 47. I don't know how old you are, but you've sold me. I'd move to Michigan just to vote for you for the commercial. All right.
It was fun. I go out to these county fairs and they say, "Hey, Indiana," it's kind of cool.
Yeah. That's awesome. As always, everybody, before we get into talking to Paul, we have the lovely Laura Livengood with, and she's going to take your questions a couple times during the show. Laura, tell them how the rules of engagement go.
If you have a question, a good, unusual question, not something of the standard variety, because we'll cover that, please write the word question in all caps or tag me, one or the other, because I really want to listen, and those will catch my eye, and we will try to get to as many questions as we can during the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Laura.
You're welcome.
So, Paul, before we start, I just want to let you know you were the most overqualified person for any government role ever that I think we've had. I mean, you've got Harvard degree and then Princeton master's and PhD, public policy. What exactly does that mean?
Well, it's looking at how to get healthcare to work better, how to make the economy work so it works for the people. When economies have succeeded, how do they succeed? When they failed, what went wrong? I teach about economies all over the world. I direct a master's program in international development administration. So right now I'm teaching economic development theory, teach about how some countries have succeeded. And partly I look at this and I look at what we're doing in our own country, and we're not applying the lessons. And we've got an economy that's working for the 1%, for the few at the top. And a politics that makes that perfectly reasonable because they have all the influence in our Congress and our government. And we're not making the kind of broad investments to fix we need cheaper and better health care. We need to do so much better in our education up and down the line. We need to fix our criminal justice. I mean, these are just what I learned in my PhD is how to make an economy work, but then also how to look at individual programs. I also I've done evaluations all over the world of government and nonprofit programs, and I've studied many programs. And so it's also, I think I'm pretty good on policy. I'm pretty good on saying, okay, how do we make this bureaucracy get the job done?
Wow, all of that would seem to be qualifications I'd want in every representative. Fixing those things. Why don't we have? It doesn't seem to me. I'm going to diverge on my normal questions, just because this
Sure.
is. Why do you think we have a Congress right now that doesn't seem interested in any of that? I don't. On either side, there doesn't seem to be any conversation about how we fix any of it. It's more like a "we're against you" kind of thing. What do you think that is?
No, I completely hear you, and Bernie had it right that money in politics has sapped the conscience and sapped the focus of our whole Congress. Many Democrats, as well as the overwhelming majority. I mean, the Republicans, they still are sort of playing around. They still kind of pretend that they believe in this trickle-down economics that we know is a disaster. So, they're just sort of not much of a chance there. But on the Democratic side, there are way too many Democrats who have sold out. And, when you have to raise all that money, it's partly the system, but I don't know, people have to kind of play that system. But that focuses their attention on money. And, if we're thinking about fixing education and fixing criminal justice and fixing our healthcare system, it's not going to be the big money interests that are going to be paying for that, but it's going to be the voters that care about that. And we've got to change the system. So So the politicians are responding to the voters, not to that big money. I think that's the fundamental.
I mean, absolutely. It comes down to where do their interests lie? Their interest lies in making money, not doing their job or taking care of the people. That seems to be the basis of it. So we need to put more decent people in government, and that's why you're running. This is your third time running against this guy, Upton, and he seems to have been there. Did I read 1986? Has he really been in there that long?
Yeah, he's been there for more than 30 years.
That's insane. I mean, nobody should want to be in there. Well, okay, Bernie Sanders isn't that long. No, I'm not going to stop there. But so I was looking at the stats. You've really competed against this guy. This is not a David and Goliath thing, other than the fact that he's loaded and taken a bunch of PAC money. You have a good voter base.
Well, I've gotten some good support. We raised some real money, but he's been there for 30 years, and he has dramatically outspent me every time. He had the Koch brothers. Just a little bit of background here. When he got to be chair of the House Energy and Commerce Committee, which was 6 years ago, that was when I started looking at running against him. Mm-hmm. And that was the moment when he sort of got in bed with the Koch brothers. They got their money from oil, and he co-authored a Wall Street Journal opinion piece with them saying government shouldn't get involved in addressing climate change issues. And this is something I've actually published on, spoken on and lectured on for many, many years. And that was what sort of got me looking at running against him. But then the Koch brothers, they've come in against me with hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Right.
So he really has had the money on his side. And 30 years ago when he got started, compared to this wacko Republican incumbent, he was relatively moderate. But 30 years, he grew up in great wealth, and he's been one of the richest people in Congress. He doesn't know what it's like to struggle the way many of the people in his district are. Right. So he's kind of lost touch and sold out. And I'm afraid, that's why I keep, this is my third time to run, partly because the evidence is becoming clear. People are opening their eyes. We can talk about that maybe later on about what's been going on here. But more and more people are recognizing he has not held a town hall meeting for over a decade. He's not willing to answer questions to the people. He is the biggest recipient of pharmaceutical campaign contributions in the House of Representatives.
Wow.
So it's a seat we need to change.
Well, yeah, I was looking at some of his money here. We're talking about it. Let's just show everybody where Fred's money comes from. National Association of Broadcasters, Energy Transfer Equity, National Association of Convenience Stores, Ford Motor Company. A lot of big names here on this. Electric utilities, oil and gas, health professionals, TVs, movies, music. Really, just there's pharmaceuticals in there, big chunk of pharmaceuticals. Mostly large and PAC contributions there. Where does your money come from? Because you did raise $1.2 million in the last one, and where are you getting your money from?
Well, I get it overwhelmingly from small donors, from donors across the district, and also I was very grateful that Bernie Sanders endorsed me. Oh, wow. Daily Kos endorsed me. Wow. And they did fundraisers that went to their lists, and so that got me a lot of new names. So I'm sure that we ended up with an average contribution less than $40 for sure. I don't have the figure right in front of me.
No, but still, I'm impressed with what I'm impressed with are your numbers. That you're able to come within the points that you have with the money that you had. You were able to raise that kind of money. He's obviously able to call in the Koch brothers and get a blank check and do whatever. But this shows that you have the attention of the people, and that's encouraging. Right?
I've got some good support across the district. I really do. And that's another reason that I'm running again, because we need to get this guy out of here. And, it's each time you run, you learn a few things. So I've got a much stronger volunteer operation going than we've had this time in my previous elections.
Nice.
And I'm certainly going to be working to, work the phones, work the grassroots, build a volunteer base to get the message out there, because that's what it takes to go against his big money and his 30 years when he used to be a moderate. He always talks about being bipartisan, but he's been voting over 97% with Donald Trump.
Wow, 97%. And you were telling me he's a big factor in the repeal of the ACA, right?
Yeah, and that's another thing which really makes this a different kind of election, and that is to say he was at first against the Republican plan, the Republican health care plan, and it wasn't going to pass Congress. And
Oh,
then 3 days before the vote, Trump called him in. Trump promised him, $8 billion against pre-existing conditions, which is a pittance. Which
right.
I mean, they cost like $100 billion to begin to address that, and he flip-flopped.
Wow.
And that really did not go. That opened a lot of eyes here in our district that he's willing to kick 38,000 people in our district off health care, and dramatically triple prices for people getting towards retirement, all just to give tax breaks to the very wealthy.
Yeah.
So our chances got a little bit better with that one.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, you've got Trump just bringing down the Republican Party, and the Republican Party working to bring themselves down because they're not really doing much. They're like, he's fine, right? He's. I see that he's backed by the Koch brothers. You're saying, and a lot of big money. Tell me about Blue America and that endorsement for you.
Yeah, I've been working with Blue America and Howie Klein since my very first election. And Blue America is a progressive group that supports progressive candidates. Progressive meaning saying that, basically we've got an economy working for the 1%. We've got to get it working for the people. They're in favor of universal health care. We know single payer is going to be cheaper and better health care for everybody. They're in favor of American leadership on climate change, moving to the clean energy future that we know we all need. It's just a really thoughtful group with pretty good support across the country, and I've been very great discussions with Howie Klein. He puts out this Down with Tyranny blog, and if you haven't seen it, check it out. There's good stuff on there, and I show up on there. He wants me to send him, after I get finished with you, I have to give him a paragraph on climate change and where I stand and where Upton stands.
Nice.
That won't be a hard one.
No, I wouldn't think. Great. Well, that's good. I mean, I've seen Blue America posts, and I've seen Howie Klein in Twitter, but I really had no idea about the organization. So thank you for educating me on that.
Sure.
It's good to know. Tell me about this, Robin Hood Paul.
Well, that's just describes the economy that we have right now. We have got an economy that's. I heard Bernie use this phrase, but I used it 2 months earlier. Robin Hood in reverse.
Yeah,
is what we've got with our Congress right now, and that is to say that they want to they actually want to raise taxes for the poor. Seriously, to cut taxes for the wealthy. And they say it with a straight face. My goodness.
That I don't get. How do they sit there and say that? Even watching Ted Cruz try to argue Bernie Sanders on healthcare, the tax plan the other night, it was like, you're out of your mind. But they do. They say it. They practice their speeches and they get their sound bites out and they just run with it. It's really frightening, isn't it?
Yeah, it's frightening. But, I think it's getting kind of old.
Yes.
And this idea again, they're playing this trickle down economics card, and it's snake oil. It's people. At least the polls show the majority of people recognize that cutting taxes for wealthy people doesn't help working people get better off. Do
you think that is in your district? You're walking the streets, you're talking to these people. You've been doing it for 3 elections now, coming up on 3rd. Do you believe that they believe this stuff? Have they changed their minds on how the government should be functioning here?
This is definitely the key issue, and let me put it in a very simple way. All right, and that is that in the last 20 years across our country, but even more so in my district, the median wage, the average worker, is working more hours for less than 20 years ago, while the stock market has more than doubled in the last 20 years. So the economy, has been, on the whole booming, and people in our district are there are factory workers who used to make $30 and now they're making $18, and of course they feel that.
Right.
And so that's when you talk with people, that's the concern that I hear most often, and that I'm going to make this campaign, really centrally focusing on.
Great. We're going to talk about healthcare real quick, and then we're going to go to Laura Live and go see if there's any questions in the audience. So, actually, we're talking about economy. My bad. I had the wrong slide up. We're talking about economy. So here's from your website. We can do better with the economy. Increase production in America, strengthen American leadership and technology. You got a great list here.
Yeah.
How do we really do that? I mean, it's a nice list, but how do we start doing that for real?
Okay. For strengthening production in America, you don't allow Perigo Company in my district to move their headquarters to Ireland and quit paying taxes. You know, you don't allow Upton. He's with the Whirlpool family, the family that owns Whirlpool. When they moved their factory out of Benton Harbor in my district, which is now one of the poorest places in Michigan, and they moved it down to Mexico, and they bought Mexican equipment, they could depreciate off their taxes that Mexican equipment and reduce their taxes for buying stuff in Mexico. You know, right now we allow people to make their money here, park it in the Cayman Islands, and not pay tax on it. So that's part of what you need to do. But then part of it is that, you know, we need to be focusing on the technology and jobs of the future. I mean, this business of bringing back these coal jobs is so stupid. But Fred Upton, he's been, you know, he was the chair of Energy and Commerce Committee, and so for so long he promoted tax breaks for oil and gas that were 3 times the kind of support that we get for solar and wind. And it's backward, because in the first place it's polluting the planet, but in the second place, where is the demand going to be increasing in the future? You want to be supporting the technologies that have increased demand in the future, and we know that that's solar and wind. Germany's doing it, China's doing it. Their governments are working with their private sector, and so they're getting the exports, and we're falling behind. And that's partly. I mean, my congressman, my opponent Fred Upton, he's a key player in taking us in the wrong direction. But we need to get our whole government focused on building the economy for the future. Another thing you do, and we've seen this in Germany, is you get strong unions, and these strong unions that work with government and work with management to say, what are the areas of production where we can increase our exports, where we can be producing more of the higher tech production, and get the unions involved in that discussion, because that's worked in Germany, and we need to follow the example of where things are working for working people.
All right. Well, we're gonna go to Laura Live, but we're gonna come back to this because what you really said to me was we have to change what we prioritize in terms of where we spend our money. Right now, we spend all our money on war. The demand for fossil fuels is going to come from that, right? So we kind of need to stop being a warmongering nation, don't we?
Well, just a little bit of background. I was the founding chair of the Kalamazoo Interfaith Coalition for Peace and Justice.
Nice.
And we got started coming up to the war in Iraq because we felt that we needed people coming from a faith perspective to say, no, this is not right for our country. Number one, it's based on lies. And number two, it's to protect the oil, access.
Right.
And number three, we need to be using those resources for the people, for education. I mean, we talk about fixing the economy, and it's not just increasing production. It's getting cheaper and better healthcare. It's getting better education. I talk about moving 1 million people from behind bars into the productive economy and back into the community. That's the way you strengthen the economy, as well as the high-tech stuff. Yeah, you need that too.
Agreed. Good. Laura Livengood, we have any questions from the audience?
I do. I've got some really good questions. I'm trying to figure out how to group them. I think because there's been 2 that relate to water, I think we'll talk about water in Michigan. Two things, specifically Flint. What's your opinion? What would you do about it? And also Great Lake preservation and underwater oil pipelines. Any thoughts on fresh water safety and pipeline infrastructure? And that came from Michael and from Robert.
Yeah, I mean, sadly, we had the biggest inland oil spill in the United States right outside, and the oil then came downstream through the Kalamazoo River into our district, and that river is still not back to the pristine condition that it was before. This is just not right, and we've got an oil pipeline going right under the Mackinac Straits. If that breaks open, that oil is going to go right into our Great Lakes. by right where it's close to Lake Michigan, Lake Superior. This is not a risk we need to be taking for our water supply. The Great Lakes they're a blessing for us. They're a wonderful resource, and it's our job to take care of them. And putting a pipeline full of petroleum right through that, which is 60 years old and rusting, is just not the way to do that. But to come back to the Flint issue, because this is really such a sad thing, and it's indicative of where my state and to some extent our country has gone, and that is to say that the Flint water crisis got started because our governor put in an emergency manager who was making decisions on the basis of profit and not responsive to the democratic will of the people. And then the state government took away the authority from the local people. And then they have continued then when they denied responsibility to impose the cost of fixing the system onto the people of Flint. So the people of Flint still today don't have water of the quality that any American citizen should expect. And they're being asked to pay some of the highest water rates in the country for substandard water. And so this is just such an example of if this had been, Flint is predominantly a people of color. All right, it's predominantly low income. If this had been in a wealthy community, the government would have taken a whole different approach. Yes, this is an example of how, on the one hand, we've got to be fixing our infrastructure, but on the other hand, it's people of color and people of low income who get shafted time and again. And we need a government that's going to stand up to that. We need people who are going to stand up to that, and that's certainly something I'm going to work on, something I'm going to do. And frankly, the federal government has done some moves in the right direction, but it could have been earlier and stronger there as well.
Well, geez, at this point, with what we have in the federal government, which I put in giant air quotes, they're not going to move on any of this. They don't care. I mean,
so I've got another good question that ties in well with this.
Great.
From Red Economics, he'd like to know, how would you bring jobs back to Michigan?
Well, part of it is what I said about we need to be strengthening high tech. But part of it is that, again, let's say, for example, we need to be doing better in education up and down the line. But one thing I've been focusing on is vocational education.
Nice.
This is a really big issue in my area. There are 100,000 jobs in Michigan not filled. Most of them are pretty good paying jobs because we don't have the qualified young people to step into those jobs. Right. Also, when people lose their jobs when they're maybe in their 40s or 50s, we're not retraining them for the jobs that are out there. I've been talking with business owners, but also people in vocational education. The Perkins money, which is federal money that covers most of this vocational work in Michigan, it's been flatlined since 2002, not increased for inflation, so it's decreased, and Trump wants to cut it by 15%. And this is when we need to be. Part of it is we need to respect and appreciate for our young people that technical jobs, carpentry, machinist, these are good jobs. These are jobs that they should be learning about the opportunities, because for a lot of young people, we don't need to have an academic education for everybody. But then we've got to have the educational infrastructure so that they can actually learn these things. And it's going to be a win-win-win. There are young people graduating from college with a good degree, but working for $9, $10 an hour because there aren't the jobs for what they've been trained for. Right. And then we're not training people for the machinist and the computer programming also, and some of the medical jobs where the demand is rising. And it's this is not the sexiest thing in the world, but it's really important, and we need to fix it.
Agreed. And I'm glad you mentioned vocations. We've lost all that when I was growing up in school. That was a major part of going to school, is choosing vocations and having those options out there, teaching kids something besides standardized classroom education.
Right. And the focus on standardized tests from our Democrat and Republicans has been way too much.
Absolutely.
We've got to recognize that education, that thinking is much broader than what you can cover on a standardized test. And for that matter, every kid should do exercise, get some exercise every day. That's just going to be healthier. We don't have enough of that. We have an epidemic of obesity in Michigan, and if we start kids off really enjoying not sports just for like the top sports teams, I'm fine for having a good football team, but we need physical activity for our kids. We need a broad education about thinking about problem solving and working together with one another, not just passing tests.
Gosh, critical thinking and logical problem solving, two things that we don't teach our kids at all. They're elective courses when they get to college, right? It's like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can I ask one more question?
One more, and then that's enough.
One more. Okay. No, cut off. Okay, because I liked this one. This is from Supreet. What have the lessons from history taught you about food production, and how does it relate to the current structure for food production in America?
Ooh.
Yeah. Well, one thing that's happening is we're learning that our industrial fertilizer-heavy food system is not going to work for us for the coming decades. Organic is growing, and we've learned that organic can be as or more productive than the sort of chemical fertilizer based approach.
Right.
The world, we have to worry about a food crisis across our world. We are, and this intersects with the issue of climate change, because climate change is already sometimes bringing major droughts, simultaneous droughts, to different food production places around the world. So we've got to be moving forward on all tracks for better food production. And in the United States, we have great opportunity here, but this is another area where the federal government has cut funding on basic agricultural research, and so much of their money is going to the big corporate farms, not to the family farmers. There's so much more to be done there in terms of supporting the sustainable agriculture that's going to work for the future. Yes, we need to be continuing to increase productivity, and sometimes that will involve some new seeds and so on. But there's a lot of work to be done there.
All right, so that's interesting. So you threw that in, which maybe say like what you're saying is we need to do some genetically engineered seeds, maybe GMOs, but other than that, organics. Is that what you're saying? Are you kosher with GMO?
We got to be. I'm not completely kosher with it, but I'm also not completely against it. I think that if you look at it very carefully and like this business of having seeds that are not going to reproduce the second time around, that's just completely unacceptable. But we do need more drought-resistant, more salt-resistant varieties of things like rice and wheat, because that's the challenge that climate change is going to be bringing to us. I think that some genetic research can be helpful there.
Interesting. I think I know some of our green and environmentalists would challenge that there are plants out there that would serve the purpose. We just have to change our eating habits, right? Here I'm going to say all of the above.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you were dealing with climate change in general, and let's just talk about that because we were talking before in the green room. I mean, that's I do this not just to save democracy, but we do this volunteer network so we can have a habitable planet. I mean, I don't, I ask everybody that comes on this show, where do you stand on your, in terms of climate change, how bad is it? From a scale of 1, we got lots of time, to 10, we're so screwed. And, I'm on 11 on that scale.
Yeah, I'm on 12.
Right. Right. So we have to do everything and anything right now to hopefully have a habitable planet for you and I in 20 years. Right.
Yeah, and let me say that this is what got me running against Fred Upton the very first time. That I was publishing on climate change, and I was in our Kalamazoo Public Library presenting with two of my colleagues. I was doing the part on the politics of climate change, and I said, guess what? Our congressman from Michigan's 6th District is the most powerful climate science denier in the House of Representatives. Great. And somebody in the audience said, Paul, you should run for Congress.
Nice.
And I did.
That's awesome. So that was 2014? Was that the first?
This would have been in 2012.
Okay.
That got me sort of thinking about it for 2014.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
I helped to start the climate change working group at my university. One of my classes wrote the Kalamazoo Climate Action Plan that our city is now working with. I've paid my dues here.
That's awesome. And I'm just going to bring that up where you work right now because everybody in the audience, we had Dave Berniecrat on the show. These guys, they teach together. This is what happens when you get educated people together to run for a progressive movement. They're not competing against each other, at least not in that kind of a sense. I mean, you guys basically running for the same office, but you're really pushing the movement left, right?
Yeah, and I'll say that both David and we were both big Bernie supporters, and we worked together on the climate change focused Earth Day. We had our first Earth Day celebration in Kalamazoo, our hometown, for a decade. This last Earth Day, April, and it was an enormous success. David and I worked together on that. We have differences. I've done this a couple times. One thing that I know is that being a professor and that kind of speaking is a little different from running a congressional campaign.
Right.
So you learn a few things each time, and a lot of people out there kind of know me. I've got some good, strong loyalty and support around the district, and we need to win. We need to win in 2018. And I think that the experience and not just name recognition, but people who know where I'm coming from. I've been building, I don't know if I want to use the word progressive brand, but commitment to making things better for the working people of this district. I've been talking about that, and we're going to keep on building that, reaching out to different groups. And I think that the reason I'm running again is I think that I've got the best chance to win this one, and we absolutely need to turn this red district blue.
Absolutely. I'm excited because it looks to me like you have the best chance. I mean, this looks like your best opportunity right now with everything going on with politics, with the Republican Party in disarray, with the Democratic Party not really knowing what they're doing. It's pretty obvious this time around you're not going to get any help from any establishment entities, not that you were before, but we were talking about the DCCC. At one point, there's an article saying that they were going to come in and do something, and they never really did, right? So
yeah, they put me on their waiting list.
Nice.
Okay, fine, but they've never given me any money. No, I've raised real money.
We froze.
Overwhelmingly from small donors across the United States, and particularly with that help from Bernie, that was the biggest thing that gave me a pretty big email list with people who made like $27, $5, $3, $2 contributions, and I need that going forward for sure. The one thing I'm going to say is that we're building a grassroots movement that's going to take using Facebook, making phone calls, talking with people about bringing people out, both for the primary and for the general election. And I'm going to be reaching out for a stronger volunteer base. If we want to really change this country, it's going to take a lot of help from a lot of people. And I'll go ahead and say right now, the website is clementsforcongress.com with a volunteer sign-up sheet there, because I'm in this to make the change. And I'm grateful for the opportunity on this show to talk to other Americans and other people who care about these things. And I'm asking for your help to make it happen.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you for saying that. We have all the links to the information below, the website, to Paul's website. Everything else is below in the description of the YouTube video or this event. You guys click on those links, go there, donate, volunteer. You just heard it, right? Last election, more than $1 million raised to compete against Fred Upton, who raised $3 million. And this time around, I understand, has $6 million. But is he running for sure? I read an article that says he's not going to announce whether he's doing this or going after somebody else's gig until the beginning of the year.
There's been talk, and the media that he might run for Senate. Our Senator Debbie Stabenow is up for re-election. I think she'll cream him.
Really?
But there's talk that he could run for that Senate seat, and if that's the case, then this would be an open seat. And then I would start off with more name recognition than anybody on the ballot.
So you kind of hope he does that. But Debbie, now what do you think of Debbie? Do you want her in there or you want her gone?
Debbie would be so much worlds better than Fred or any of the Republicans.
Oh.
Yeah, no question.
All right. So we want to keep.
We interviewed Marcia Squire, who is running against Debbie currently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, a few weeks.
Okay. I haven't had a chance to meet Marcia.
Yeah, she was cool.
All right. Well, good. It was good to know what you think of Debbie. And that's interesting to note. So he won't make his decisions. He just kind of sit here and wait, and we build up. You can build up momentum while he decides and sits on his cash, which is fine. So
yeah, and we're reminding people. It just came out that I mentioned that he's one of the biggest. He is the biggest recipient of pharmaceutical company contributions in the House of Representatives, and he was one of the people who who put up legislation so that we do not have regulation of opiates, of opium, based medicine going out to our doctors to reduce and block that regulation. Wow. So this is how the pharmaceutical companies make more profits off of us, and we don't deal with some of these really, really critical health issues. And it's back to the fundamental problem of money in politics. We've got to turn this around. It cuts on every issue, on climate change, on healthcare. I mean, we're talking about private prisons. We're talking about for-profit schools undermining our systems. There's a lot we need to. I mean, this issue cuts so many different ways. But in any case, to come back to this, Fred has been showing his true colors more. They become much clearer, even in the last few months, for many of our voters here in the district. At the same time,
nice.
As he's not standing up to Trump, and people are kind of figuring out where that goes.
Yeah, he's not standing up to Trump. You said he hasn't held a town hall in how long? 10 years?
In more than a decade, more than 10 years. That's right.
That's ridiculous. I see you've got is this? Did you guys hold a town hall without him? Is that what this is? And you had a Muppet stand in?
We had a cool town hall. Yeah, we had a Muppet thing, and it was a really fun evening. And there was a nice group, about 150 people there. We got to talk a little about the issues. Yeah, and it was
nice.
Just to parody this guy, because if you're a congressman, it's your job to represent the people. My goodness, if you're not prepared to take questions from them, obviously you can't do your job.
Yeah, we got a bunch of funny slides on Fred. Got this one from the Los Angeles Times. This one's not funny, but it sounds like it's right along his lines. We weaken the Clean Air Act. Was he doing something to do that as well? Is that his? This is a billboard here.
Yeah, I'm not sure what specific issue they're talking about there. I mean, he's definitely, again, he's been a climate science denier, the most powerful climate science denier in the House for 6 years. So that has, obviously increased the oil and gas, use for energy, when we should be moving much more rapidly towards solar and wind. So that wouldn't be helping the clean air very much. But I don't know what specifically that billboard was about.
Nah, yeah, just voting with just dismantling everything the EPA used to do. It doesn't really protect anything anymore, right? It's just agency.
Yeah, he's been right there with the Republican votes slashing EPA budgets.
Absolutely. Tell me about this, Paul and the Better World Builders. What's going on here?
Yeah, Mark Lee worked with Dave Benack and me putting together this climate change Earth Day, and he's the owner of Better World Builders, and they came and I needed to make my house more energy efficient. So they're actually the leading energy efficiency firm, and they have a real sort of progressive working philosophy. So Better World Builders came and fixed up my house this summer to improve the insulation. And so we're now using less energy than we were, to heat the house and to cool the house than we were before. And Better World Builders is an example of how you can be out there providing a service but also with heart, also with a real sort of progressive ideology, and how all these things can come together. So I was really delighted that they could also be working on my house.
Nice, yeah, that's fantastic. That's awesome. Sounds like a cool organization.
And then I got to talk with them about, I went and spoke with their workers about why I'm running and hearing their concerns. And this is one of those places where you hear about, well, gosh, just not people not making the money that, the profits going up to the people at the top and not coming down. And they're working with people, trying to fix up their homes who are struggling, who are trying to say, am I going to fix these windows and fix this insulation, or am I going to put food on the table? Or am I going to get clothes for my school kids?
Right, right.
So people hear this.
I want to go back to economy just a bit, because you have several degrees in understanding policy in general, so you should be able to come up with this one. So we were talking about where the money goes, and that right now we're looking at the GOP wants to tax poor people even more, for even more breaks for the rich, right? If you were elected, we all know, you were talking about how corporations, if you're going to raise their taxes, they're immediately going to say, I'm moving my business elsewhere. I'm putting my headquarters over here. We're going to build our factories in this country. How do you do both? You should be able to do both, right? Raise taxes and say, you got to stay here if you want to do business with us. Can you do that?
Yeah. I think that it's both a question of the legal and tax structure, and also of the culture that we build here in our country. In terms of getting corporations to invest in the United States, the part of the problem is that we are not building the educated workforce. We are not consistently making there's a high road and a low road to attracting business. And the high road is, let's have a place where people want to live, where people can get really good education, excellent recreation, where people of different cultural backgrounds, have fun doing things together. Let's make it a good place to live. Let's have the best infrastructure in the world, so you can actually communicate, at a low cost. This is the way we need to be attracting business. Let's be building our high-tech future. This is how we increase investment in our country. Then, in terms of the tax issues, I think that we could go back. This is all I like to say this. We could go back to Ronald Reagan's income taxes and estate taxes.
Really?
He's kind of a conservative icon, but that would be so much better than where we are today. I don't think that we need to be increasing the corporate taxes. I think they're already high enough. The issue with the corporate taxes is that there are so many incredible loopholes, and this is where the money in politics. What the money in politics has done is that the big companies, like the multinationals, they've used their money to get loopholes from the existing tax structure. So the real tax rate might be 35%, but there are plenty of companies who General Motors has sometimes paid zero tax when they've been making multi-billions in profits. So it's the loopholes that we need to fix for the corporate tax side.
All right, and I've heard Bernie say that as well, that we need to fix those tax things. The whole fossil fuels industry would be in the red if we weren't subsidizing the shit out of them right now. True? Not
to mention the fact we've been subsidizing the shit out. Excuse me. Yes, quite correct. But also, one of the basic principles is we have to say polluter pays. Okay, that if you are making money and you are imposing the cost of asthma, that you're imposing the cost of climate change, that you're imposing the cost of sickness on people around you, then that cost that you're imposing, you need to cover that cost. And we've never done that in this country, and that's something that we need to do.
No, we don't hold corporations accountable for anything anymore in this country.
Right. We need to turn that one around. And again, this is like so radical that every economist says, of course we should.
Right. It's the only people that really don't agree at this point are the people in power, right?
Exactly, and they've got this sort of loop here where we give you money and you scratch our back, and that's sadly, again, how is it we keep coming back to money in politics?
Right.
I don't know.
And then let's look at Fred, and there you go, right?
Yes.
As Fred will vote whatever his wallet says to vote for, right? That's how we go with Fred. I got another card. We got time here. Laura, live and good. Do we have any questions? I hit you up.
Yeah. Let's go with stance on marijuana, medicinal and recreational, from Davey Z. What do you think about pot?
I've been talking with the medicinal marijuana people here in Michigan, and our state legislature is trying to basically screw them. It's kind of a complicated story, but they want to set it up so they have to go out of business in order to apply to get into business. Medical marijuana, people depend on this for their basic well-being and for dealing with pain and dealing with these things. It ought to be a no-brainer. And in terms of the recreational, I think that it's great that we're seeing how this works in Oregon and Colorado and some other places. And let's take those examples and bring it to the people, get it before some kind of a vote, and let's allow the people to move it in a forward that we know is in terms of public health, in terms of taxes, in terms of reducing crime, going to take us in the right direction.
Well, so far, all programs have done all of those things.
Exactly. Exactly.
None of the BS that they've purported was going to happen with legalizing cannabis has happened, right? So.
Right.
It's a lot of money coming in.
Get that information out there, and then make the change.
Well, then you got the pharmacy. There is one thing that they don't report on, that is the pharmaceutical version, the synthetic version of cannabis does kill. K2 has killed more than 100 people so far. It's kind of interesting compared to the natural plant.
That's interesting. Yeah. No, I'll need to.
And you don't see them going after the pharmaceutical companies for that either. It's just it comes back to money in politics again, right? We're back to that point.
Exactly.
Any other questions, Laura Lavengood?
Chemo was asking, what is your opinion about what this is going on with the Democratic Party, with what Tom Perez has been up to and all of that?
I got a slide for that.
You got a slide for it?
Yeah, I was saving this to the end because I was laughing so much at this. I do want your take on this. Perez and the Purges. What do you join new Unity Tour 2017? What do you think of that crap that just went down with that?
Let me go back a bit. Bernie got shafted by the DNC in the 2016 election, and that is not democracy. We as a Democratic Party, we need to be demonstrating good democratic practice, and purges are. I mean, this is not the Soviet Union, but also I want to say that there are a lot of corporate Democrats, and money in politics has gone, for Democratic politicians as well, and we need a dramatic program of reform in education and infrastructure and healthcare, in our criminal justice system, in our money in politics, in our tax system, in our technology system. These are not going to happen until we have a Democratic Party that's prepared to put forward a really major ideology that says our economy is not working for the people. We need to we need to have a major across the board reforms, and then be prepared to push those forward. And you don't get that with purges.
No, you don't get that with purges. I guess here's what I'd like to know from that. I take it as a sign of, I used to take these things as a sign of leave the party, but now I'm like, geez, they're a scared animal. This is just a scared, they're scared, and we're going to take them over, and they see the signs on the wall. How do you see this, right?
Well, I'll just say what I am really focusing on, and what I've been focusing on, is winning my district,
right? Because
that's my job. That's my job. What we need to do is turn this red district blue, and then in Congress, I am going to work. I'm going to work pragmatically, but I'm going to work to build a powerful, progressive New Deal. It's a New Deal agenda where we turn this economy around in the ways that build the productive capacities in education, in moving people from prison to the workforce, with infrastructure jobs, and then with better infrastructure, with high technology, but technology that works for people, with the sustainable energy for the 21st century, with taking care of our environment. We need a party that's prepared to push forward a bold, progressive agenda on all of these fronts, and I think I'm a good person to do that. That's what I'm focusing on.
Thank you. As I said, you're running through your stump speech. We haven't even started the stump speech portion of this show yet, but that's all right. You're getting going. Laura Lavengood, any other questions?
No, that was it.
Fantastic. This has been great. You really do. You consider yourself a Berniecrat, right? You're.
Oh yes, I think Bernie's a hero.
Me too. Me too. Paul stands opposed to the TPP. I just want to hit this real quick before we talk about some other things, because I've heard a lot of back and forth on this. TPP, bad. Most trade agreements, bad. Where do you stand on what we should do here with these things?
I think that we need to do more to encourage production in the United States, but we don't want to be allowing international tribunals to be judging, to disallow local environmental, local labor regulations We need to be using our trade system also to promoting better values in terms of taking care of the environment, in terms of respecting labor. The TPP and our big trade issues, they have been driven by multinational business that don't care where they make their profit. And we need to have our trade policies driven by, I'm not against trade. We need to have trade, but we need to be building up production and protecting workers in our own country and using trade to promote those values overseas as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's America seems to have, with all of that, we seem to have tossed diplomacy and logic and decency out the window for really what looks like fascism to me. I don't know. Would you call it there?
There's a lot of elements of fascism, sadly, that we're seeing today, and hate mongering. I mean, today's politics, it's such a disaster for the country. I mean, I'm sure I don't need to convince any of our listeners about this.
Right.
But to me, it's also kind of an opportunity, because like I do have like Republican friends who've been coming to me and saying, this president, he's terrible, he's awful. We got to change this. So the fact that things are so bad, I think, kind of gives us an opportunity to turn a corner. But we've got to grasp that opportunity with a clear, broad, grounded in reality, grounded in facts agenda for how we make this economy work for the people and how we keep our planet and world working for our children and future generations.
Absolutely, absolutely. One more question that I got to hit you on, and then we're going to have you go through your stump. Military-industrial complex, which really takes the majority of our cash these days. If you want money for education, it's not there. Healthcare, it's not there. But if you need $700 billion for tanks and planes, boom, it's there. Would you actively fight to reduce, eliminate, liquidate the military-industrial complex? And second part of that, what percentage of our money should actually go to our military?
It should be less than what it is. For example, the military needs a good audit. For example, we don't need 1,900 nuclear warheads.
Oh,
that's just absurd. But part of the issue here is that we've had a government that has been. I mean, even if you look at our so-called military budget, it only covers about 2/3 of the actual military expense,
right,
because of these stupid, wrong wars we've been getting ourselves into. What we need to be doing is building cooperation on common issues, of which the biggest one happens to be climate change, with other countries around the world. If we're working more robustly with China, and I think also with Russia, with the other countries around the world, on how do we solve these big global challenges cooperatively together, then that provides the opportunity then to shift the money from the military to these other areas, increasing security.
Absolutely, I agree. All right, take a few minutes here and tell us why we should vote for you and not Fred Upton this time, and and tell everybody what you need, right? Because this is a people-powered revolution, and so just make sure everybody knows what you need from them to win this.
Sure. Well, first off, people should be voting for me, and people should be working with Mike and supporting my campaign. And I'm going to come back to the thing I said at the very beginning, and that is to say, we've got an economy where in the last 20 years, the stock market has doubled and the median wage has gone down. It's been working for the 1%, not for the people. And we need to turn this around if we want our democracy to succeed. The way we improve our economy is to get a dynamic economy with lower cost health care that serves everybody with better health. We know that works from international experience. The way we strengthen our economy is with excellent preschool for every child, with stronger vocational, with better K through 12, with affordable college and other kinds of post-secondary. The way we strengthen our economy is with a 21st century infrastructure, with a science and technology program that gives us the leading technologies, but that also take care of our Earth and our planet. With the top one on the list there is solar and wind energy, but there's so much even to be done with conservation. People should be voting for me because I am going to be a leader with this broad-based people-focused agenda, getting the money out of politics, fixing our rigged system. And my opponent, Fred Upton, well, he was called Congress's #1 enemy of planet Earth by the LA Times as the most powerful climate science denier in the House. He is personally responsible for this terrible Republican health care bill passing the House of Representatives this May that would have taken health care away from 38,000 people in our district. He is personally responsible for making these companies that are profiting on opioids, on people getting addicted to opioids, and not allowing the government to properly regulate these companies. He is, according to Mayday, a citizens group, he's one of the most corrupted by big money in Congress. This is a race we've got a chance to turn a red district blue. Barack Obama won in this district. A number of our Democratic senators have won in this district. We have our best chance coming up this next November. I'm going to be a candidate who's going to work on this because I've been working for social justice throughout my entire life. I'm going to keep it up, and I think the Congress is the best place I can do that now. And I'm asking for your help. Go to clementsforcongress.com, sign up to donate, sign up to volunteer, and there's a donate button. Maybe if you put in $27 a month, that would be wonderful. There's a space for comments, and if you didn't get your question answered on tonight's discussion, then shoot me a comment, and I respond. So far, I'm responding 100%.
Awesome. That's excellent. It's nice to know that we have a candidate or potential a sitting rep that is actually going to respond to people, and we've got social media right there to do it. I think that's fantastic. So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for running again and again. It's so, just what I see, I've been interviewing candidates for this for a while now, and the time and the energy and the emotional impact that it takes to run it all is insane. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you, John. It's a job that needs to be done. It's fun to do it.
Yeah, it is need to be done. I don't know if it's fun. I'm glad it's fun for you. I prefer doing what I'm doing. You keep doing that. Tell us about this song you picked here. We got Lion in a Cage, Nelson Mandela, Dolores Keane. What's this song mean to you? Why did you pick it to go out with?
Well, my wife is from Ireland, and we met in the Gambia when I finished up as a Peace Corps volunteer. And back in those days, we had this was in the late 80s, you had your little cassette collection. And she had this collection of Dolores. She had this one cassette of Dolores Keane. It was one of our 15 cassettes. And I actually cut my sort of progressive teeth pushing for divestiture from South Africa at Harvard when I was a Harvard student.
Nice.
And so Nelson Mandela was one of my heroes from my college days. And I thought that this Dolores Keane song is just a wonderful song. She's got a great voice. And it tells about how you can be in prison for 25 years, and then you can go from apartheid to real democracy, and a single individual can help to make that happen. So it kind of represents the dramatic change that we need to see in our country, and the kind of leadership that I respect and appreciate in making that change happen. Plus, my wife loves the song too.
Awesome. Well, then it's a really good pick, right? But that thank you. I appreciate that. And we learned that lesson, I did anyway, interviewing Andrew Feinstein, the author of Shadow World, Global Arms Trade. He went through that process in South Africa from a protester and then 6 years later a PM, right? And he watched that transition. And I think it's going to take us longer than 6 years, but that gave me hope that things can really reverse from that kind of, insanity. So,
and we're ready for that.
I think we are. I think we're ready for you. Everybody out there, please help Paul. Fantastic individual running. Third time's the charm, Paul. We're going to help you. Will you come back?
I'd love to come back. Just call me up. I'll be there. I'll be here.
Great. We'd love to have you.
That's great.
Laura Livengood, thank you so much for all that you do.
You are welcome.
And everybody.
And our schedule is now officially full for 2018, gang.
Oh, right. Yeah, we'll cover the schedule.
Yes.
We'll look at that. We've got a lot of people booked for We the People. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Paul, we're going to play your song, and you can get out of here if you want. Thank you so much,
my friend. Thanks very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, everybody. We're going to just talk about a few more things before we get out of here, because we've got a few more things. Here, this Town Hall for Progressive Democracy. I just want to bring this up. This is actually happening. The keynote speaker is Senator Nina Turner. and this is going to be broadcast. This is a collaboration between Uphill Media and the Progressive Caucus PAC, which is Larry, I call it PDPO all the time, but it's Larry Taylor and Betsy Cunningham and what they do with Sunday in the Show. They're an official Our Revolution group, and this is our first big event. And if this goes well, we're going to be doing more of these. So you guys made this possible. Thank you so much. Please share. Actually, we don't even, we've got an event link, but we don't have a created on YouTube yet. It's just an Eventbrite for tickets. But that's that. Here's what's going on. Laura Livengood booking way too many people. Just, I don't want to talk about those people.
I stopped for the holidays.
Stopped for the holidays. That's right.
And I haven't started for January yet.
That's right.
But just booked Mike McCabe, who's running against Scott Walker in Wisconsin.
That's
He's
beautiful.
At 12:20.
Look at all these people, everybody. And there are so many more. There are so many more. They all need your help. They all need your support. This is what it takes. This is exactly what the Tea Party had to do to take over the GOP when they started, but they didn't have half the brains or the technology. So we've got it much better going. We just need to get off our asses and support all these progressives that are running. Thank you for being here. Make sure you click on the links, support these people, and we'll see you Wednesday with Anthony Clark. He's running Congress in Illinois' 7th district. So
yes, our first Illinois person.
Yeah.
And he's a brand new congressperson.
All right. Well, there you go. We'll get this started. Dolores Keene, Lion in a Cage.
That is burning in the African sun. Black blood flows from the white man's gun. Locked in a jail.